Ever want and desire right now in this moment. It doesn't get any better than this. Everything you see now at this moment, this is all I need. I can make anything happen right from here. The day is beautiful. It's noon. The sun shines strong. The nature is beautiful. I'll let you look at my background. That's my background scene. Got some very small mountains out front. That's what I get to look at while I talk to you all. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the spiritual ninth dimension. This is the finale of my spiritual dimension videos. I've done spiritual 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th thus far, and I'm capping it off with the spiritual ninth dimension, even though I may make similar videos of a different topic in the future. This is the end of this particular series. So spiritual ninth dimension, I think in order for me to better explain this and for everything to make sense, I think it's important that I recap everything before. So I'm going to do the video like this. I'm going to recap the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th dimension. And I'm going to slightly alter it. It's going to be very brief, of course. And I'm also going to talk about people that incarnated, really important people that incarnated and what they meant to our evolution as human beings on this planet. And I'll finish the video off by actually talking about the spiritual ninth dimension and what's in it and what it is and how it exists. So let's get started with everything. Now, let's start off with the spiritual 4th and 5th dimension. Now, I've made videos about these already so far, but the spiritual 4th and 5th dimension, spirits that incarnate on those levels, they're very human, or they are very of this world. And let's start with the spiritual 4th dimension. In the spiritual 4th dimension, an astral body is the body of existence that a person inhabits during that incarnation. And an astral body is very different from a physical body. So as you can understand, in the spiritual 4th dimension, it's very different from our 3D reality. But we do have an intimate relationship with the spiritual 4th dimension because it is very much an everyday part of us. And our experiences with the and within the spiritual 4th dimension happen during times like dreams, unconscious situations, afterlife, and realities and consciousness of this type. And the type of entities that exist in the spiritual 4th dimension, for example, are devils, angels, ghosts, and spirit guides, entities of this nature. The astral body is quite similar to a real physical body because they're similar, but they're very different. Of course, the astral body cannot really interact with a physical body here on this plane. Is more of what we interpret or experience as mental, but it's so much more than that. It's just the way that we see it from this vantage point of reality. So now let's talk about the spiritual 5th dimension. Spiritual 5th dimension, in that dimension, the person is still very human. However, they have a very clear understanding of what their expectations are in existing here on this planet. They know what they have to do, and they're not playing around. They take everything seriously. They take their job seriously, no matter how menial it may seem to someone else. They understand that their purpose is not deeply rooted to here in this physical world, but in the unphysical world. They understand that that's the most important thing, and they're not overly attached to here. And because they're no longer overly attached to here, they have a new power about themselves. They understand that they are immortal. They begin to understand that they're immortal. And once you realize that you're immortal, you're an immortal spirit, it makes you incredibly powerful. You know, I guess if you want to compare that to something, think about someone that's constantly scared of every single thing. They don't want to take any chances about anything because of what may happen. Now, as a person in the spiritual fifth dimension, they are beyond that. They've come to a level of self-mastery, and they understand that this is a phase. It's just one part of something much, much, much bigger. And when you know that, it unlocks a huge amount of power and potential from within you, and sky becomes the limit in that case. So next, let's talk about the spiritual sixth and seventh dimension. Now, spiritual sixth and seventh dimensional entities, they are very, very God-like. Now we're past, fourth and fifth, third, fourth and fifth, very, very human-like. Everything's very down to earth. But when you get to the sixth and seventh, they become very God-like. And particularly with the spiritual sixth dimension, a spiritual sixth dimensional entity, I guess the way of looking at it is that they have one foot in this world and one foot in the other world. So they understand and they feel this world quite well, but in a way it's unrelatable because a part of them is not really here. They're working on a higher plane. And in the spiritual sixth dimension, the master vibration of that level, that dimension is love. And not just selfish love or anything like that. I'm talking unconditional love. They understand the true power of love. So if you think back to the spiritual fifth dimension, you could say that was about self-mastery. But with the spiritual sixth dimension, it's more about unconditional love and consciousness. They're very conscious because, as I just mentioned, half of who they are is just in a total conscious state. It's very hard to escape for a person in the spiritual sixth dimension. And a person that was born into the spiritual sixth dimension, they learn early on that they have a tremendous amount of love in their heart for all, and they realize that love cannot satisfy or help just the people in their immediate surroundings. They have enough love for a vast amount of people, and because if they don't get to express this and put it out, it leaves a void in them, and they know that they have a mission here on this planet. They understand that. Okay, so next, the spiritual seventh dimension. Now, spiritual seventh dimension, I guess one of the biggest differences with the spiritual seventh dimension is that these entities are able to freely go from dimension to dimension as they please to accomplish whatever task that they have to accomplish. And they whether it's for teaching, whether it's for guiding, and so forth. And in the spiritual seventh dimension, the master vibration, the main vibration frequency in that realm is, I guess you could say, the law of one, or the illusion of separation. They come here and they exist to teach everyone that separation is an illusion. No one's here for themselves, and there's a master plan goal, and that no one's different really. This is all. If you think everyone's different and it's them against us, it's really an illusion. And incarnates that come on that spiritual dimension, that's one of the main lessons that they're here to teach. And their mind state, they are very like I just mentioned to you about the spiritual sixth dimension. They have 1 foot in this world, 1 foot out of this world. On the spiritual seventh dimension, they are, I guess, they are fully immersed in their spiritual side of themselves, and it may be quite hard for them to fit in for that reason. And they're really, for them, it's probably hard for them to have like a regular job. It'd be really, really hard for them to have a regular job or a regular life, because having a regular job or a regular life will make it difficult for them to accomplish their life duties, their godly duties, their heavenly duties, however you want to think of it and call it. So now let's talk about the spiritual eighth dimension. Now in the spiritual eighth dimension, a physical body is no longer relevant. Oh yeah, with the spiritual seventh dimension, you may meet one of these entities, and right away, or maybe not even right away, you'll know that this is not, I see the human form, but there's something special about this person. Right away. Now, in the spiritual eighth dimension, a physical body is no longer relevant in the spiritual eighth dimension. And incarnated people that are spiritual eighth dimensional people, they come here for mass. They come here for mass awakenings. They come here to really move a civilization, a society forward in a really huge way. And again, a human body is no longer really relevant, even though they do exist in a human form, but it's no longer relevant. And they can exist in a physical body, one physical body. They can exist in they can split their spirit into multiple bodies, however many it takes to accomplish the goal or accomplish the task. And again, it's mass spiritual awakening, or mass conscious awakening for spiritual eighth dimensional entities, and they're not just confined to one body. They can exist in multiple bodies. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, what are some examples of spiritual entities existing in these higher dimensions? I think instead of me just talking about this, I think it would go over better if I read you a couple of pages from a book from Arthur Ruho Akawa about it explains, it shows great people throughout history that incarnated on higher spiritual dimensions, and it'll kind of give you an idea of it'll kind of give you an idea of like the type of energy they possessed and what a person on that spiritual dimension exists as and what they do, and it'll really let you kind of know what that world's all about. And before I read this, I don't want you to think about this too much as physical things, or think about it too literally. I want you to think about it in terms of energy, frequency, vibration, that type of thing. I think if you think about it like that, it'll give you a true vision of what I'm trying to project to you. The 7 colors of the Creator's light. The Creator's light is expressed through 7 colors. In the 9th dimension, the light of the Creator is divided into these 7 colors through each of the grand Tathagatas of this dimension. As the light flows downwards, these 7 colors of light are transmitted to the many Tathagatas residing in the 8th dimension, where the light is split still further to produce more than 20 different colors. The first of the 7 colors in the 9th dimension is yellow, which shines with a golden hue. It is governed by Gautama Siddhartha, otherwise known as Shakyamuni Buddha. Buddha's yellow light is the color of God's law of compassion. White light is regulated by Jesus Christ. This is the color of love. Spirits who are involved in medicine or other forms of healing receive guidance of this white light. Can it be mere coincidence that doctors and nurses wear white uniforms? Moses is in charge of red light. The color of that instructs people who are considered leaders in society. Political leaders and those who contribute to guiding society towards justice. The influence of this red light. Red light is also referred to as the light of miracles because whenever miraculous or inexplicable phenomena occur, they do so under the auspices of this red light. Next, we come to blue light. This is the color of philosophy and ideology, and it is controlled not by one spirit, but by 2. The first is Zeus, who, when he appeared in ancient Greece, was primarily in charge of the arts and literature. The other spirits in charge of blue light is Manu, who, according to Indian mythology, was the progenitor of the human race. His philosophy was the basis for the laws of Manu, which prescribed the daily conduct of the Brahmin caste. Manu is responsible for philosophical matters, but also handles many special assignments, including various global racial issues, such as unifying the belief system of different races and nations. Silver light is the light of science and modernization. The color is under the regulation of the spirit who previously incarnated as Isaac Newton, and who sometimes before that was born as Archimedes. Although he is a grand Tathagata of the 9th dimension, he appeared on Earth as a scientist to promote scientific advancements in the 3rd dimension and above. Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein are both Tathagatas of the 8th dimension who work under the silver light. Now we come to green light, which governs nature and harmony. This color is controlled jointly by the 9th dimension spirits Manu, who also governs blue light, and Zoroaster, a god of the Middle East and founder of Persian religion that believed in the duality of good and evil and that used fire in his worship. Both of these spirits teach the workings of nature on earth as well as the structure and harmony of the whole universe. You may have heard of Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. Green light guides the philosophies of these spirits of the 8th dimension. Finally, violet light comes under the direction of Confucius. This light deals with ethics and morals, scholarly thinking, propriety, and order. It provides a way of organizing the world in a hierarchical order and of promoting a system of control based on seniority. The gods of the Japanese Shinto religion fall under the influence of this light. I have now introduced you to 8 grand Tathagatas and explained how each of them governs one of the 7 colors of God's light. However, we know that there are 10 Tathagatas who live in the 9th dimension. So, who are the remaining 2 spirits and what do they do? One of these spirits is Enlil, who was known in the Middle East by the name of Yahweh. He is the god of the Israelites. He is also feared as the god of disaster in the Far East. The other grand Tathagatas is Maitreya, whose role is coordinating and regulating. He is responsible for splitting God's light as well as adjusting the strength of each of the colors to achieve balance. So here we are. We're at the spiritual 9th dimension, the last dimension in the spirit world that I'll talk about. At this point, we're beyond talking about anything that even an active imagination may truly accept. We are beyond talking about existences as incarnations at this point. I think it's better to think or look at these entities as immeasurable, electromagnetic, energetic consciousnesses. Not like people, spirits, and just very small scale entities like this. Think about, I'll give you an analogy. Think about a Christmas tree with light bulbs on it. Higher dimensional people represent the light bulbs. Lower dimensional people receive the light. Now the actual power source would be these ninth dimensional entities turning on the consciousnesses of the light bulbs, putting out the light to the lower dimensions. There are said to be about 10 distinct consciousnesses, each with their own form of character, power, light, etc. Of the lower 8 dimensions, the higher the dimension, the more powerful and discernible the communication between they and the ninth dimension. For example, when it comes to ninth to third dimensional communication and interactions, a good analogy would be between us and our sun. Our interaction with the sun is very profound, and the sun's really bright and powerful entity, full of warmth, love, understanding, energy, everything that we need. But even all that it gives, we still sometimes take it for granted and not appreciate it as much as we should. Don't try to understand it as much as we should and need to. Now, these 10 entities collaborate with one another. They communicate, they have discussion with one another, and they decide when, where, and how much power and influence they feel they must radiate. These entities typically extend their influence down to Earth about every several thousand years. So you could think of it as it incarnates or comes down about every several thousand years and puts that influence out and just completely transforms the Earth. Because it all starts with a thought. It all starts with consciousness being put out, and it's spreading like wildfire and just changing everything. A way to know which entity's influence is happening is to look at the entire dynamics of past eras in history and kind of comparing them to one another. The way the people were moving, interacting, everything that was happening, and you'll see patterns. You'll see what was abundant, and you'll see what was lacking, and it'll kind of tell you which entity was there around that time and very active around that time. The higher you go up in dimensions, the greater the amount of light. And I use the term light very loosely, because light isn't, the way I'm using it now, is not just what you perceive through your eyes or through your senses. It's so much more than that. You know, our ability to perceive through our senses and through our perceptive abilities, it's extremely limited. And there's so much energy and information that we can get from the universe that we are just completely blind to. So that's it. That's the end of my series on the spiritual 9 dimensions. It was a lot of fun doing this series, and you know, now I'm at the end, spiritual 9th dimension, but this is not the end. This continues, and I'm gonna go to something a little bit deeper and a little bit, you know, more different a little bit later that's related to this. But I want to end the video by touching on different religions, spiritualities, organized religions, organized spiritualities, and what they all mean, what the purpose of them are. You know, and I'm going to use the analogy by Master Ruho Akawa, and I'm going to use his analogy, but I'm going to also add to it. And this analogy goes something like, spirituality and religion is like a vehicle. It gets us from point A to B. And all of us are unique. All of us, our journeys are unique. And how fast we need to get somewhere and how we need to navigate, and you know, all these different factors will be different for every single person. And ultimately, you have to look inside and find your own way. Each of us individually, we have to look inside and find our own path. And everyone's path and mode of transportation will be very different. You know, when I use the analogy of vehicles, you know, you can think of it as, you know, an airplane if you need to get somewhere really, really fast over long distances, or a motorcycle if you need to navigate kind of difficult roads and narrow roads and terrain, this type of thing. Or if you're moving with the family, you know, you may need a minivan, or a group, you may need a bus, that type of thing. So, you know, disagreeing and arguing, saying you should be in the airplane, you should be in the bus, and this type of thing, you're not considering that person's path, that person's journey, when you say things like that. And you know, ultimately, you're gonna have to master yourself. Ultimately, it's gonna be self-mastery, because this is an incarnation. We move, we do it with a lot of others, but ultimately, it's the tests are gonna be your own, that you have to deal with, and what you're tested against and what you're compared against. It's all going to be measured against yourself. So those are my thoughts on spirituality, organized religion, organized spirituality, and that's the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. I appreciate you all. You know, make sure you stay tapped in. Make sure you get outside. You know, sun gaze, or at least look toward the sun. Get your shoes off, ground, connect to the earth, plug in, get all your clothes off. You know, expose your energetic orb and absorb that energy directly. Let your solar panel fully absorb all that energy. You know, it's a really beautiful thing. You know, swim in the ocean, swim in a river. It's really beautiful thing that, you know, a lot of us are missing out on. So thank you so much for watching my video. Again, I appreciate and love you all. You take care of yourself. I'm gone.